All right, it is Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. It has been quite a while since I've done an update on my elevator parts collection. So in this video, we are going to be taking a tour of all of the parts in my collection, and I have a little bonus surprise at the end of the video, so be sure to stay tuned. Before I get started, I do just want to give a shout out to everybody who has contributed things to this collection. The list is huge, so I can't get everybody, but you know who you are. If you've contributed something to this, I greatly appreciate it, and I thank you so much for it. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the tour. If you've been watching these for a while, you've probably seen the slow progression from just a single shelf to a few more shelves, just a little bit more each time. So this tour will actually begin over on this side of the room where we have a few parts here. We'll start off with this guy on the floor, and some of you might know exactly where this is from. This is one of the exterior indicators from the Busch Stadium parking garage in St. Louis. Currently doesn't do anything, hopefully will someday. And with that, this is the car panel. This one's from the west garage, the indicator's from the east. This is not wired up yet. I have a cool project idea that I want to do with this at some point. That's why I'm kind of holding off on it. Here we have the Otis Autotronic Annunciator. This is probably still to this day my most complex project. I'm super happy with this thing. If you would like to see more details about this thing, see it in action and all that, be sure to check out the video up here. But just a quick demo of this. Here's the control panel. You can input a floor, so let's say I want to make car 3, it's idle. Let's see, it's on 11, we'll just make it go to 12. So if I hit car 3, 12, you can see that 3 moves up to 12. You can do that with all the cars, and it has a randomizer. There's also the clock and the light selection there. But again, if you want to see this thing in more detail, check out the full video on that. So moving on over here at the very top, we have this Dover indicator. Doesn't do anything at the moment. I probably will make it do something at some point, but for now, it's not a huge priority. It's just kind of sitting there. And then I figured might as well, since we're here, since airplanes are a big part of my interest, this is the airplane model shelf. This is just a few of the models I have, but I've made this nice display for it. I'm pretty proud of this. Not elevator related, but it's kind of on the way to the Dover Impulse panel. So everyone probably knows and loves Dover Impulse. This particular panel is one of the early simulators that I built. So if you push the buttons, you can see it moves up and down, does the Dover buzz, which is pretty cool. There's also the alarm button, which just sets off the buzzer. And finally, after all these years, I don't know if this was in the last video or not, finally got the phone door for this thing. Then down here at the bottom, this here is a custom Dover Impulse call station from the Texas State Capitol, which is pretty cool. It's also a massive panel. That's why I have it down here next to the Impulse panel. So we're gonna take a jump over here real quick to some more of the car panels. This one is one of the newer ones, I know that for sure. This here is a really awesome 9-stop Otis panel. It's an old Otis. So we've got the up and down buttons here, service key. There's an outlet here. I don't think I've seen one just kind of out in the open like that. Door buttons, and then all of the floors, which I have put incandescent bulbs in. Looks really nice. Fan and light switch, stop switch, inspection, and the alarm, which I just put an obnoxiously loud beeper in. Here's my Otis touch call button. It's currently not hooked up. Don't even have a power cord on it, but it does work. Over here is my long car panel that came from the Keener garage in St. Louis. This is fully working. It's not a simulator, but all of the floor buttons light up. And pressing each of the buttons changes the indicator to that corresponding floor. There's also an alarm, and the fire key turns on the fire service light. Hiding back here in the corner, I have to move the door a little bit, is the long chime. This is the directional lantern, but it also serves as just the regular chime. So, pretty cool. Or I guess we should do the proper long. So that kind of hides back there, mainly because I have 120 volts right there and I need that to power it. So moving on over into the, I guess, main display area here. We've got a lot of different panels down here on the bottom. So starting off all the way over here in the corner, we have a Dover traditional button with this interesting light. I still need to wire this. I haven't even touched this thing yet. Got this MAD call station here. with a chime inside. Modernized by Montgomery plate. This really cool custom monitor call station. I've wired it up. Has 4 indicators, but we'll get back to that. Down here is a really cool round Westinghouse call station. Over here is the Westinghouse exterior indicator. This here is also a simulator. You can use this remote control to make it go to a floor. So if I press 3, you can see that it goes up to 3, and we'll just make it go down to 2. So if I press 2, it goes down to 2. So then over here we have a Montgomery dependable elevator plate, an old indicator from a Dover elevator, this really neat car to lobby panel. This is one of the Busch Stadium pieces. So this was 5, 6, and 7. US elevator, some interlocks, roller switch, an escalator sign, and over here is the GAL cowbell, which I'm not gonna hook this up and fire it. It just is a metal sound against this. I think I've demonstrated this in another part tour if you absolutely have to hear it go off. Here's my still very sad Otis Series 1 panel. It's less sad because I've got a couple new switches on here, filled in a couple of the holes, so that's kind of nice. Emergency power really wouldn't be on a COP. This would be though, but I had an extra key switch, I threw it on here. Still looking for my floor buttons and an alarm though. So back over here, a couple of the extra things, kind of things I kind of hide a little bit. This is a CJ Anderson call station. We've got this Otis lantern, an Adams call button, which for some reason randomly quit working and I haven't been bothered to fix it, so it just kind of hides in the corner. This really narrow Adams car panel, which was most likely a Lexan replacement. Here is an old Otis service cabinet. This came from the same elevator system as the Autotronic panel that we saw earlier, and from the same elevator that this panel came from. So this was right below the car panel. To open it up, use the key, and inside here are all of the different controls, inspection, light, some sort of jack, a light, generator switch, the up and down buttons, the fan, start, NS, and I believe that was like an attendant switch, not totally sure though. It's broken off, so I don't know what it says. This thing's really cool. So here is a brand new, still in its packaging, CE elevator indicator that was gonna be used by ThyssenKrupp, and this also has a special feature, which we'll see here in a minute. Behind here are 3 lanterns. This one's kind of hiding, but 3 just direction lanterns. Here we have a Haughton key switch, and then we have the Haughton car panel, which this thing is really cool. All of the buttons light up, except for one, which for whatever reason has like jammed up, so I gotta open it up and fix it. But this thing's really cool, and I actually rode this elevator when it was in service. So over here we have the Gallagher and Spec car switch. This was actually a CJ Anderson car switch. This would be found in a manual elevator. So you have to unlock it by pressing in this ring. So press that in, move it, and then same thing this way. That's pretty cool. Down here is a rather interesting car top station. Just uses some kind of cheap buttons. So here is a Swift Meridia controller. This is what would be inside the cabinet. Down here are a few other random things. Here's an escalator switch, some relays, a big Otis relay, and a smaller relay. Back up here is the Dominion GAL Jet Plus call station. I actually do have an idea for a project on this panel. I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. So over here is the Otis Square Touch panel. And this is actually a fully working panel, which brings me back to this indicator and this indicator, because all of those items are powered by this power supply here. So we can go ahead and turn it on. So this switch right here, if we hit this will turn on the CE displays. So you see that says L and that says L. This switch here controls the behavior of the touch buttons. So if we have it in the up position, they work like momentary buttons. So this is how they would be in the field. They just kind of flicker like this. However, if we flip the switch again, now they work as regular touch buttons. So if I touch them, you see they light up. And I can do that with all the buttons. And there it is, it's all lit up. To turn off the lights, I can either turn off the whole system or just hit this switch again. So doing that will turn them off. Now, kind of a fun little feature, there's a switch on the top of this panel, and if I hit that and activate a couple buttons, The tubes haven't really warmed up enough to really do it that well, but you'll see that the other lights start to turn on. The longer these are on, the better it does it, but I just turned this thing on, so it's not going to do it very well. But that's kind of a neat little hidden feature that I added into it. Now that brings me to the CE displays. So that's what this switch does. Like I just said, if you hit that, you see they turn on, does the OK thing, and now it is ready to go. So the way this system works is with the remote control. So this thing has pre-programmed floors. I can't control what they were programmed for. It's just what the display driver was set up for. So I'm going to go ahead and cycle through the floors. So we're at the very bottom at P1. So P2, L, and then 2 through 18. So you see if I keep incrementing the floor, it goes up to 18 and that's it. So this works as a simulator. So since it's at 18, I can hit this button to return it to the lobby, but we're gonna just send it down to 16. So 1-6, you hear the little chirp to confirm that you've entered something, and then hit the play button, and that will bring it down to the floor you entered. So in this case, floor 16. Now I can also turn it off. So if I hit the power button, they turn off. I'm going to go ahead and return it to the lobby. So I hit the return button. Now this is a project that was a lot of fun as well. I did a video on this thing. I actually have an idea for a potential upgrade to this system, though I'm not going to really disclose any of the details right now because I still have to figure out how I want to do it and if I want to do it. But anyway, this thing's returning back to the lobby. So I really think this is a cool project and it was a lot of fun to work on, and I like that it has this interface right here. You can turn it on and off really easy. So moving on up here, we have this Schindler Elevator governor plate, an Otis globe, a CJ Anderson call button, a Dover pit switch, a couple of circuit boards. Up here is this Armor Rotodial call station. This is actually a fully working fixture, it has a simulator and everything. However, I still haven't put together the part video. Probably should do that. So I'm not going to show it in action just yet until that part video has been released. Hopefully it doesn't take me another like 2 years to finish that video. Over here is an old Otis black button car panel. This thing's really nice. So back here is this interesting car top station, which actually came off of the Swift Meridia controller here. So the same elevator that this was on, that was the car top. And then on the lines of car tops, we have a Dover car top and an Otis car top. And then over here is the Schindler-Houghton indicator. This piece is also a remote controlled piece. However, there's no limitations on this one. I can go anywhere from L to 99. So if I choose 99, so pushing a floor in will flash the down arrow, kind of gives you confirmation you've entered it. If I press the C button, it flashes twice to let me know I've cleared the input. So we're gonna go up to 99 and up it goes. So I actually programmed this to be really fast considering it has 99 floors, but I love this display. It looks really cool. And this was actually a really fun project to work on as well. So I'm not gonna sit through it going all the way up to 99, but you get the idea. You can see it moving up. And with that, it's time to move on to the bell board. So this here are 5 of my mechanical bells, and each of them is controlled by a button. So if I press the buttons, we can hear what they sound like. Now moving on across here, come to the CJ Anderson car top station. Now this is actually an important piece for something we will see towards the end, so keep that in mind. And moving over here are a couple of fire service key switches. This one's a Montgomery, and this one is Innovation. They're not hooked up to anything right now though. So now moving on up to the first shelf, we've got a bunch of logos here. I've kind of laid this out as the logo shelf, but we've also got this old Otis plate up here. So I'll just go ahead and pan across all of the logos. And if you want to see any more in detail, just pause the video. So over here is part of the Swift Meridia controller. This is another piece of it. So that was like the main brains of the whole thing. This here is a bunch of different switches. So we have circuit breakers, door bypasses, so this would be the hoistway door, this is the car door, inspection controls, so you can turn inspection on, and then up and down buttons, So this thing's pretty cool. We also have a Schindler van here and the old GAL lantern. And if you might remember from some of my old videos, this was actually hooked up and working. I moved the lantern up and lantern down buttons over here, but I never actually set it up. So it's just kind of a static display right now. Over here is one of the new Otis buttons. These light up blue and look really nice. Here's the old Dover car top station. There's these cool black buttons. However, if we flip this switch to on and press the buttons, there is an Otis chime hiding back there. Here's an innovation sales sample. And here's one of the to be used in case of fire only buttons that you only see in California. Down here is a little hidden alarm button. There's a long elevator's plate, an Adams call station with a fancy design, an old Alderson call button. This was actually a special piece that Andrew gave me. And this one has a B car call key switch here, so you can call a specific car with that. Here's an old Otis dumbwaiter panel, a long car top station, a PTL fire service panel. If you turn the fire key on, it lights up the fire hat. A MAD call station. This was the call station from the Keener garage in St. Louis. This also has a fire key that turns on the light. An Armor VR call station. A really old Westinghouse call button. This has a roto dial, so you can see I can turn it and change the floor. An old Dominion elevator call button, which the down I need to do some work on, but these are the really cool buttons that light up. An old CJ Anderson car panel from an old manual elevator. An old GAL vandal resistant call button from the Church Avenue garage. I even put a chime in it. Here's an Electrodyne button. This really cool old Hunter Hayes Dover armor call station. I haven't wired this up yet, but that is on my to-do list. An old Baxter & Sons car panel. This was actually the first piece I ever wired up. And honestly, it could go for a rewire, but I kind of want to leave it just because it was the first thing I ever wired. It's kind of cool as we have the Hunter Hayes and the Baxter & Sons elevator panels right next to each other. These are two companies in Texas. My STL elevator 3D printed call station. It's really, really small, but it's really cool. Some old Otis call buttons. So we have an intermediate and a terminal. An old Shepherd GAL call button. This thing's really cool because it has the arrows. An Otis call button. This one has the much more satisfying clicky buttons. Some Schindler RT. So here's a brass one, and here's just a more standard style. Some Schindler HT with fire service keys. Westinghouse Vandal Resistant. Otis Series 1. These have the clicky buttons. It's the clicky call buttons. So the call buttons light up yellow, and the key switch turns on the priority service light. Here's Kone 220. Here's an old dumbwaiter call button featuring my favorite elevator buttons. I actually kind of need to rewire this thing because the light's kind of not working as well, but I absolutely love these buttons. And an old O'Keefe GAL car panel. And up here, it's a vintage Kone button. Up here on the next shelf, US Soft Touch, ThyssenKrupp, the circle version of my favorite elevator buttons. This one was used in a regular elevator, US circle button. Some more Otis Series 1. These do not have the clicky buttons though, these are just kind of the standard contacts. US square button, Schindler MT. That has a chime in it. Old General. This was the General elevator from Baltimore, Maryland. Montgomery square button. And if we use the key operation switch, it turns on the light. Monitor from the Keener garage. This was actually used by Long Elevator. And we have 3 different types of Westinghouse buttons. So behind all of these are the same contacts. However, here we have the black buttons, the circle buttons, and the triangle buttons. Moving on over here, we have the Dover shelf. So black button Dover, older Dover Impulse, so this is the older contact, and then newer Impulse with the clicky buttons. This one also has a chime in it. And the traditional buttons. Here's a more common style call button, and then this really cool reflective one with the custom arrow. And then there are more plates up here. A bunch of different long inspection tags. There's a Park Roanoke pin, Otis, Southern Elevator, Miller, Schindler. Over here are some Brailles, C.J. Anderson, Minnesota Elevator, and Westinghouse. And also can't forget the Montgomery Relay. So up here are the international buttons. This one is Boss. It probably is not pronounced like that, but this is kind of interesting because this is a fully custom 3D printed button. The circuitry inside, the contact and everything was custom made and 3D printed. So that thing's really cool. We have this Schindler button here, another old Schindler, and another type of old Schindler. All four of these buttons are really cool, and one thing that's kind of interesting is they're all really small. Over here we have a couple of modern Schindler buttons. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get these to do anything. Here's my Montgomery Vector. And since the last video, I actually changed out the color of the LED so it looks more like a real Vector now. It still is the same custom circuit board, lenses, and arrows, but just the color is more accurate. Vandal Resistant Innovation. Old GAL, but this is actually an arrow heart button that I put in there and made a little adapter for it. It's kind of hard to tell, actually. Here's just a blank GAL black button and a Monarch GAL black button. Up here on the next shelf, we've got some EPCO with arrows, the shoe button, the same exact type of EPCO buttons as this, but without the arrows and a shiny plate, a long call button, these are the square buttons, a fire service switch with this very beefy key switch, and an Innovation Universal call station with fire service as well. That turns on the fire hat. And up here on the very top, an Otis lantern, a Dover lantern, actually two Dover lanterns. We have Impulse and then the VR. Another Schindler HT, that one doesn't light up, it's just kind of sitting up there. And then the Houghton Triangle. And this is actually kind of a stretch for me to reach. Kind of wish I could have put this on another shelf, but I started running out of room, so I stuck it up there. Got a few things back here. Got this Otis magnet, Schindler logo, the fire indicator, the Westinghouse plates. You have the gigantic one next to the smaller one. Montgomery, the Reflex, Midwest Elevator, and just a very random 757. So right here we have a Schindler RT button, one of the really tiny terminal ones. Here's a recent piece I just acquired. Otis Vanity from the Wells Fargo building in Roanoke. This I still have to wire up, but these are really satisfying buttons to press, even though they're just GAL. Now this here is a special piece. This is a call button that came from the Sears Tower in Chicago, Illinois. This was probably from one of the upper floors. I don't exactly know what floor it was from, but it is really cool to have a piece from that building. Here's an Innovation access key switch, the ThyssenKrupp safety ambassador button, a really cool vintage Otis call button. I don't have this wired up yet, but soon I'll have it. When you push the up and down, this lights up. An old Dominion call button. Pushing each of the buttons makes the in-use light turn on. Black button Otis call button. Armor. Black button Dover. Westinghouse. Houghton. Adams. These are the same buttons as what was on the Sears Tower button. Here are Adams Otis touch replacements. I put orange LEDs in there to make it look like the orange buttons, but these you actually have to press in. They're not like the touch tubes. EPCO SSL. I really like these arrows, they look cool. It's an old C.J. Anderson button. So here are 3 Otis black button call stations with the old roto dial. These things are really cool. I've got 13 floors in here, so you don't really see a 13th floor that often. But here's an intermediate, a terminal, and then another intermediate, but with the newer setup. There's an old Montgomery black button car top station, an Arrow Heart call button, another Schindler RT, another EPCO SSL button, a GAL Vandal Resistant. Now this one is a very similar style to this one, so you can see the similarities, but this one is actually a different type of button. An old GAL Jet Plus Southern Elevator button, and I made these custom all black buttons, which look really cool. This is a rather interesting call station. I haven't made this work yet. It needs some contacts, but it has these really satisfying buttons. And then here are some Montgomery A series buttons. So just a regular terminal call station, a terminal call station from a freight, and then an intermediate freight call station, which I need to fix the battery on because that one died. Then up here on the top is another Montgomery A series button. This is a kind of homemade fire panel. And if I take the key and turn it on, the emergency operation light turns on. So then moving on over to this is my US elevator digital indicator. And if you remember from the beginning of the video, I talked about this panel. Well, that's because this panel works with this indicator. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the light off so we can see it a bit better. So turning this switch here turns on the indicator. You can use the up and the down buttons to change the floor. So if I press up, it increments a floor. And if I press down, it goes down a floor and goes all the way down to 0. These two switches control the arrows, so you can manually turn the arrows on or off. And then if you press this run button and grab the remote control, you can do simulator mode. Now this was the very first elevator Arduino project I ever did, so I was super proud of myself when I actually got this working, because I didn't really know how to make these things yet. And you can see there, it now arrives at the 9th floor. And then when you're done using it, turn the switch off. And then up here is the US elevator indicator from the Elmwood garage in Roanoke. This switch turns on the lights, but this again was one of my very early projects and I don't think it works anymore, so I really have no idea. It's also very bright, it's hard to see. Up here are two indicators from the Busch Stadium parking garage, one from east and one from west. Up there is a Kone lantern, and up here are some more lanterns, Otis, Long, and Westinghouse. Up here is the position indicator from the Keener garage in St. Louis. But before we get to that, there are a few more lanterns on the very top. So this indicator was a fun project I recently did to test out a proof of concept. So you can see that the S is turned on right now. And you might be wondering, how do you control this thing? Well, in order to do that, you use your phone. So let's send it to 5. So I use my phone to input a floor, and this indicator will respond to that by moving up to the floor that I chose. So it's on 5. The indicator on here says 5 as well. So we'll send it up to 7 next. And you can see here, it will go up to 7. It has to time out at first because it's just like a real elevator, but now it's up on 7. So that was a fun project that I recently did. And with that completes the tour of the elevator parts. Now at the very beginning, I said that we have a special bonus content here at the end. And that's because, as you guys probably know, I do a lot of work on all these elevator parts. And I have a little parts workshop in the other room, and I've never really given a tour of it, and I've had some people request a tour of the workshop. So before we get on to the tour of the parts workshop, I just want to thank everyone again for the help of getting some of these parts. So for those of you who have given me stuff, I really appreciate it. And this has come a long way since the beginning. With that, let's move on to the workshop. So here we are at the workshop. And this is probably a pretty familiar view to those of you who have watched some of the live streams and part videos I've done. All the wiring and work that I do on these projects happens right here on this table. So I'm adding on this part of the video because I've had a few requests, people saying, hey, I'd like to see the workshop, maybe do a little tour. And there's not really a whole lot to see, it's just a bunch of parts and a bunch of stuff, but I figure go ahead and add this on here because it'd be kind of interesting. So here we have my old chair, which is the perfect chair to have for here because I can wreck it and I don't really care because it's already kind of just destroyed. But anyway, here is the light. Provides nice lighting here for the table. The table is very old and kind of beat up. I have definitely put a lot of wear onto this table, but it makes a nice work area for making the videos and such like that. So first we have over here, this is kind of the pending project / Andrew corner. As you guys probably know, I do a lot of work for the Elevator Museum, so a lot of parts and stuff that I'm going to be working on for the museum just kind of sit over here. At the moment, it's kind of a mess because I just got a few new things, some Otis parts. I've got some projects for Andrew I'm going to be working on, just a few extra things there. So just a bunch of just random parts that sit over here. Generally speaking, these will be worked on in the near future, though I've been very busy lately, so I haven't been working on projects. Same thing kind of down here, a few extra parts. These aren't really being worked on right now. There's just a few extra things I have down here. So underneath the table is where the storage is. It's not the best storage system. I don't really have any other space to put everything. This is kind of my corner here, so I kind of have to work with what I have. At some point though, I would like to get a new shelf and reorganize all this stuff, but this is what I have right now. So starting off over here is the wood pile, and there's not really a whole lot to see here, just a bunch of various pieces of wood that I use to build pretty much anything I might need. Behind these parts here are just a few random other parts, nothing really exciting, just a back box and a few other pieces there. So this box down here is all wires. It is a large box, and I'm actually overflowing this box. I can barely get all this wire in here. This is all wire I pulled off old parts. I've only bought wire one time, and I bought it really early on. Right after I bought it, I got a bunch of wire from a panel and never really needed it. But it's been nice to have that spool because I can get whatever length I need out of it. But this is all from different parts. There's a ton of it, you can see here. So won't be running out of wire anytime soon. Here's a bunch of power adapters, various voltages, things like that. This is just a random box of Otis parts that I got recently. Haven't really gone through those yet. Here we have some more random part boxes. There's not really a whole lot to see here. It's just boxes of just kind of whatever. This is more like a circuit board box. These are all just circuit boards and things. And like I said, when I eventually do get a better place to store this stuff, it's going to be more of boxes of different types of things rather than just shove it all in a box and hope it fits kind of thing. So here is the big kind of whatever box. And this has just kind of everything in it. Bells, alarms. This is from an Otis panel. Got some circuit boards. I think this is actually a Dover. Yeah, that's a Dover display driver. Got some chimes, bells, extra buttons. Just kind of everything at the moment. I think this is, yeah, it's more parts of the Otis. Actually have some Peely stickers. So this is kind of just like the random stuff box right now. So this box and these three boxes I want to kind of separate into smaller boxes at some point, but like I said, I don't really have a good place to do that at the moment, so this is what I get. Just a bunch of boxes full of random stuff. Now this here is my button box. Some people have called this the treasure box, just because this is where I keep a lot of spare buttons. It's got all sorts of stuff in here. I got, let's see, Schindler, Innovation, got some Otis, some Houghton, Dover, GAL, Monitor. I think that's, yeah, Adams. Got some Montgomery. So we got some Otis Vanity. It's kind of all sorts of just random buttons. So these are just more buttons themselves, not really on plates or anything. I think there are some other buttons in these boxes. It's just mainly because I ran out of room in this thing. This here is wire box number 2. This is kind of an unofficial box that I turn into a wire box when I start overflowing this thing. I just had this box, I threw some wires in it, and then it just kind of turned into throw more wires in it. At the moment, it's got 2 alarm bells in it. So back there is what I like to call the mobile toolbox. If I ever need to go work on a project somewhere else, I need to take parts, I usually just throw it in that. That's just an extra drawer thingy. I'll put that up at some point. I don't really have room for it here. I'm kind of full on this side, so I just stuck it back there for now. This is just a box of some Otis buttons, just an extra parts bin. You got a drill, Dremel, extra Dremel bits back there, a spare indicator, and some paint. So that pretty much concludes all of the bottom. Again, just a bunch of parts, nothing really exciting. Then we have up here, this is the toolbox. So this is where I keep all the different tools and stuff. Battery holders, so 9 volts, AA's, got some A23s here, so all different types of battery holders. So you've got super glue, because I have to fix stuff a lot. Multimeter, this is a very important tool here in the workshop. Also we have soldering, another important tool. Some cutters and scrapers. This is a very useful tool for soldering. A bunch of various files. Then over here we have different screwdriver bits, specialty bits. Got these old drill bits. And these very useful tools. Then in this first drawer is where the main tools are: screwdrivers, wrenches, cutters, those sorts of things. So in the second drawer, we've got wrenches, Allen wrenches, socket wrenches, solder, pens, a bunch of just random stuff. Third drawer is kind of the electronics drawer, breadboard, so measuring tool there, LEDs and resistors. These are like relays, switches. This is the light bulb box, microcontroller stuff, sensors, potentiometers, those sorts of things. There's an electronics kit of a bunch of different stuff, some Otis rotodial labels and motors. So this is kind of like the electronics, like microcontroller, low voltagey kind of stuff. And then the bottom drawer, we have more wrenches, sandpaper, we have drill bits, and lots of batteries. So that's the toolbox. And then finally over here are all of the drawers of other parts. Over here is all the chemicals and stuff, cleaning stuff, oil, that sort of thing. So here is where I keep all of the hardware, like nuts and bolts, screws, washers, things like that. And then down here we have all kinds of different bins of things. Just everything pretty much. I've pretty much labeled everything, like DMG stuff. Here's some switches. We've got key switches in there. EPCO lamp holders. These drawers down here aren't labeled yet, just kind of random dump bins for now. So same idea over here, a bunch of drawers of different stuff. Impulse, Otis touch tubes, alligator clips, innovation buttons. Here's where I keep different LEDs, so I've got all kinds of different colors. All of them are in their own drawers. Various large bulbs. Same thing up here. Here's Otis black button. If we need wire nuts, plenty of those. Dover traditional. So just tons of various parts, just kind of organized by category. Up here is the tape. So two-sided tape, duct tape, every type of tape you probably could imagine. And a painted over Westinghouse logo that I have never cleaned. And a few towels, because need those. So that pretty much concludes the tour of the elevator parts and the workshop. The workshop, like I said, is not really anything that exciting, but I know some of you guys wanted to see this more in depth. It's really just a bunch of random parts and tools, but those random parts and tools are what are used here to create these projects that you have seen on the part videos and on the tour and even on the museum tour, because those all get worked on right here and they go off to where they need to be. So thank you guys for watching this tour. I know this was a long one just because there's a lot to see, but I really appreciate you guys watching through this, and I hope you enjoyed the tour of both the workshop and the elevator parts. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.